Good morning and welcome to BestsellingExperts.com. This morning I'm talking with Warren Whitlock, and Warren is an expert on books, book publishing. How would you describe yourself?
I read a lot of books.
That helps.
I've written a few books and I help other people promote. Actually, the distinction is I prefer to say I work with authors rather than with books. I mean, we have to talk a lot about books. But really when it comes down to, there's authors, and anybody who's serious about being an author today knows that that's a business. So I'm really in the business development and publicity and promotion world, but you know, when I'm talking to authors, we talk about selling books.
In other words, there's a lot more to the business than just completing a book.
Yeah, I quote Mark Victor Hansen, who said 90% of the work is done after you get done writing the book. And I qualify that by saying that most of that work ought to be done before you write the book,
before you write it, yeah. So would you say it's more author development than it is book development?
Yeah, and then doesn't that make it personal development? So that's something that puts a lot of what all of us do into the same thing as personal development. If I'm better at what I do and learning new skills and marketing better, then I'm going to have more people wanting to read a book from me. And one of the big keys I found is that, you know, you think this through. Just let's imagine a bookstore. We won't even talk about whether or not people buy at bookstores anymore. But imagine the experience at a bookstore. What percentage of the people in a bookstore looking at books have read the book already? Almost none.
Right.
Yeah, you know, you might go and pick up a second copy, but most book sales are the people buying a book that they have not yet read. So it's all about the platform. It's all about things external to the book. As a reader and an author, I really care about there being quality in the book. But the truth is, in the business of selling books, very little to do with the content. It's the platform that counts.
You're approached, I'm sure, many times by someone that's started a book, that's working on a book. What do you advise them?
Start marketing before you do anything else. If you're working on a book, start marketing now. If you're thinking about doing a book, start marketing now. If you dream of someday being able to write the New York Times bestseller, today start blogging and networking with other authors. Attend events where authors go. Start acting like an author. It's serious. It's your career. Take it seriously and start acting like an author. And an author needs to publicize themselves today. One thing that's really changed in the last few years, social media, and that's what we're calling it now. It's just doing business at a faster pace. And we've always liked the idea of reading a book and maybe writing a letter to the author thanking him for the information, or calling them up and saying, I'd like to buy more of what you have. But most of the publishing world is set up for the idea that the author gets done with it. Perhaps like the myth of some great movies telling about the guy who retires from his job and goes out on the farm and writes a book, and you know, the zaniness ensues with the funny farm, or if there's every one of the movies where there's somebody having a change of life, always one of the couple is writing a book. And at the end of those movies, when you thought they were never going to get the book in, because it's kind of a subplot, the end of the movie is always a year later, and they have a baby, and they're walking down a street past a good old-fashioned little bookstore has a window full of the books. That's a myth. That doesn't happen at all. It's not going to be somebody's going to find your great work and it's all going to turn into things. There's still a lot of good serendipity that happens that way, so you will find stories. But I say that, you know, when the mother telling a story to her 9-year-old about wizards and such said those are good stories, I ought to write them down. And the multi-billion-dollar empire we know as Harry Potter, there was a whole lot of people making a full-time living running a business. Otherwise, it would just be mom telling a story. And so the first thing an author needs to know is that it's business, and start it out as treating it like a business. And the more you get known and the more your platform gets known, the better it's going to be. Even if what you're having get known is that you're just a mom telling a story to the kid. Even if you're going to be the reclusive author, somebody's got to go out and promote that and market that and make that happen. In reality, most of us want to be known. We want to get leads for our other business. We want to develop products that make more money than the royalties of a book. And so I say a book is the is probably the worst business to be in as far as making any money from it, because you're always spending more money than you make. However, having a book is the absolute best thing you can do for your career or your business, because the leverage, you got to start looking at how much of your new sales can be attributed to that book. Almost everybody that I work with winds up with that number being several times the price of a book. We've had, somewhere it's hundreds of dollars per book sold can be attributed to being the author. Not because somebody bought the book. In fact, they may never buy the book. They may just buy you because you're the author.
Yeah, and maybe they've seen the book or heard about the books.
Right.
Well, two big takeaways from today that I got were, number one, start marketing before you've even finished the book, and then you got specific on the start marketing and said, meet people, do public relations, and act like an author.
Right.
And my second big takeaway is that you said, treat a book like a business, because
Absolutely.
that's what it will become.
Absolutely. Yeah, and my new book, I wrote a book, bestseller on Twitter, Twitter Revolution, and my new book, Profitable Social Media, is coming out in a few days. Don't have one to show you. Will next week. ProfitableSocialMedia.com.
ProfitableSocialMedia.com.
Right, and if anybody wants to talk to me, always the best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm Warren Whitlock, WarrenWhitlock.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.